Rio.
Welcome, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for being with us. We're very happy to see all of you.
Mm-hmm.
You are joining us for a Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
and Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo, Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And on tonight's show, I will be talking about the journalists for hire. Journalists for hire, like we saw out at Standing Rock. Except that this expansion is now part of this propaganda around migration, around the asylum seeking, and around the border support, the migrant support, the activist support, the camps. So I'm going to talk to you about yet another border support network called almost exactly identical to what the border support network that was previously the BSN border support network. It was the caravan support network.
Yes.
And before that, it was the hashtag asylum seekers caravan support network.
Oh, yeah.
And this one is the Asylum Seekers Network of Support. See what they did there?
Oh, they keep on switching the words around. You know, this for those GoFundMes they have to set up and trying to raise money. Just give it a different name. People think they're donating to something different. It's all the same pool.
And these people are in the Rio Grande Valley. They're over there in Texas.
I see.
In Matamoros. And if you were paying attention to my recent show, updating you on what's happening on the home front, on the border of Mexico and the USA. What's going on in Mexico and what's going on here in the United States with regard to the caravans, which I told you, if you were listening in my recent prediction, I said the caravans are coming back just like they did when they first came in October. The reason you saw a sharp decline during the summer is that is when it is worst to try to cross through the desert.
Yeah, it's hot.
People die.
Mm-hmm.
They can't handle it. So yes, there was a natural break, decline, what have you. That paired with the migration ebbing because of National Guards being put into place in Mexico and deployed in the southern border of Mexico and out throughout Mexico. And in addition to that, the change in the law supported now by the Supreme Court that the Trump administration can make people wait in Mexico for their asylum hearings. All of that has put a big damper on the ability of these coyotes to convince people that are still trying to come here to claim asylum, supposedly.
Yeah.
Not that they'll qualify, but that's what they're coming here to do. Now from further and further away, like India. India is now one of the countries that has more people that are traveling undocumented through Mexico.
Wow.
Recently, Duke, they put 300 and some of these undocumented people from India, put them on a plane and deported them all. And the director of the National Institute of Migration in Mexico said this plane load of people going back to India is a warning to the rest of the people migrating illegally through Mexico. We will find you and we will deport you, no matter where you come from. Because, see, here's the thing, Duke.
Yeah.
Prior to this, Mexico did not have the resources, and I dare say this mass migration in caravans coordinated by organized crime and human smugglers and traffickers. It caught Mexico way off guard, not just because of the massive amounts of people, but also because they weren't, prepared with personnel.
Yeah, they hadn't deployed, their immigration reaction. It took all these thousands and hundreds of thousands of people to come through and wreak havoc in communities and show the patterns and all these organizations setting this stuff up. They had to take some time to put some stuff together so they could actually deal with it.
Exactly. And that's why they were metering people at different border entry points. It wasn't the Mexican government's idea to cram 7,000 people at one border entry point in Tijuana. That was the organizers and the coyotes that brought these people.
Yeah.
They're the ones that planned it like that and then said, damn you, everyone has a right to seek asylum. Let them all through.
Yeah.
How? Seriously, they don't have that many hours in a day.
Exactly.
They don't have enough people to process the claims and so on and so forth. They're cramming a lot of people in Texas across the border from Brownsville in Matamoros. Okay? They're cramming a lot of people there now. Just like what is going on at the southern border of Mexico with the Haitians and the Africans that have been rioting, lighting things on fire, and going up against the National Guard in Mexico, just like what nonsense is occurring there, you have some nonsense occurring organized by the same coyotes in these organizations like Pueblos Sin Fronteras to be combative and ungrateful with the local Mexican government. I talked about this before, and I told you Irineo Mujica, who's all the way down in the southern border of Mexico, is making videos about what's happening in Matamoros. Why? Because he and his people organize that nonsense with the migrants. They tell them to sleep in the tents. They tell them to stay in the streets. They tell them not to get work permits. They tell them not to request asylum in Mexico. And they are using them for money because that most of these people that they claim are still headed this way in the hope of seeking asylum, they're not going to qualify for it. Right?
Right.
You don't stand in a line to receive a benefit or a service you don't qualify for, do you?
No, you get
That's
rejected.
fraud. And also, you're being a jerk because you're plugging up the line. And there are some people that their lives are in danger if they don't come and seek asylum in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And the government has had to do somersaults in the immigration law to try to put a test group of people that just came in at the front of the line in their asylum hearings just to see what percentage of them are really going to show up and how many of them are going to qualify. And the answer is not a whole hell of a lot.
Very few.
Like 90% are not. So what I said was true. And the people in this process either knew and didn't care because they were just going to melt into the background here in the United States over the several years that they have to wait for their asylum hearing, or they didn't care either way.
Yeah.
Because they were going to get to stay here and work for several years with a legal permit while you wait your asylum hearing that it's going to take 3 to 5 years for you to go to. I mean, if you were a person in another country fighting for, vying for, trying to buy your way into the United States under false pretense, promise, what have you, but you were promised that you're going to get into the U.S. and you'll be able to stay here. All you have to say is, I seek asylum, I'm in fear for my life, and you get to stay for several years with a legal work permit.
Mm-hmm.
More likely than not, if you get to stay. If you don't get sent back to Mexico to wait, you got 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
Maybe you won't get a work permit right away. Maybe you have to wait like 6 months or whatever. But a lot of these folks are going to be given work permits so that they can wait until their asylum hearing comes. So on the face of it, if you're one of these coyotes in Pueblos Sin Fronteras, and now you're moving migrants, transcontinental migrants from Asia and Africa, where you're charging anywhere from the low 20,000s all the way up into the $80,000 range per person to get them into the United States to seek asylum. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
make
a lot of
hay
money.
while the sun is hot, I would say, right?
Yeah, and for me, I never realized that people were being charged so much money. You know, it made it appear, you know, in the very beginning of this, about almost a year ago, made it appear that people were like jumping on buses and they were just coming to the United States, you know, free of charge, you know, and they were able to go get a number and come in and get a hearing. And it's like, the truth is, these organizations, or this organization that keeps on morphing itself into a new organization, is behind lots of people making money, lots of people exploiting, lots of people extorting. It never made sense to me until we keep on looking at it, look at it deeper, see these characters, see what they're doing, see what they're doing visibly, see what's being reported on them. It's just amazing.
And all with this guise of helping the migrant and the refugee and being good Christians and making sure that people that need protection, that need asylum, are treated humanely.
Mm-hmm.
And the message is the United States is horrible, racist, and we know we do not treat people humanely. And while there may be instances of that being true, and there are, in these detention facilities by corrupt institutions, both in the United States and in Mexico. You know, I've talked about this. The president in Mexico has said, look, yes, the INAMI has people that are corrupt, that extort money out of migrants. We've looked into this. We've fired over 300 agents. We're hiring new people.
Yep.
We're going to root out corruption. It exists. We know that. But what the comparisons that are being made by people like Hugo Castro, who recently had his office's, illegal shelter on Playas de Tijuana raided by the National Guard. These people want to compare themselves to saints while comparing government institutions like the Anami and the National Guard to,
Being villains.
being villains on the level of being in cahoots with narco traffickers because they let, Chapo Guzman's kid go.
Oh, yeah.
Kids, plural, go, walk. And they did. And that is something that is in stark contrast in this backdrop of this mass migration, that voices like those of many of the fraudsters and con artists that I have featured on my show would have you believe that they are, very important, that they and their lives and their work and what they are doing is very important. And there's a lot of drama, kidnappings and people getting injured and
raids,
shot. And there's fires involved and people trying to murder each other and all sorts of crazy things go on. These people are constantly asking for money. Their cars get stolen. Their phones get stolen. They're getting arrested. You need to get them out. They got to go to the hospital. Somebody's getting a C-section. Somebody got shot in the chest. You need to help them because they're constantly in peril. And that includes their media allies. Why do you think that there's a government list? Why do you think that these people continually complain about a government list that they're on and being put into secondary and being chained to benches at the border? And they have articles in the Intercept and all over saying the government of the United States and the FBI and Homeland Security and and Interpol and all of these different places and different countries are treating us so unfairly. They're treating us, human rights defenders, the good guys, like we're criminals. Meanwhile, they let criminality reign in their countries. This is the same message that we keep hearing over and over again. So tonight, I want you to know who Garet Blair is, because he is one of these media allies that has been basically stationed at the Texas camps for months and months and months, just like Unicorn Riot was at Standing Rock, just like TYT was at Standing Rock, and Truth Against the Machine, and so many others that literally were birthed at Standing Rock and are now being used on this border organized crime smuggling operation, transcontinental smuggling operation. On the U.S. side, we have the Border Support Network, formed by anarchist Antifa leader Evan K. Duke III, who most recently is facing charges of rioting and damaging property or assaulting people. I can't remember.
All those, yes.
From the Portland riots that he helped organize and was part of. The guy with a criminal record that was working alongside of Wesley Clark Jr. at Standing Rock, that has continued to be used as a leader despite the many complaints of his behavior, of his fraud, and of his threatening, assaultive demeanor and activities. We've reported on all of these things before.
Yes, we have.
We've reported on all of these things more recently now. And we're going to look at all of that along with the different media platforms, the folks that are at that Texas camp, because he wasn't the only quote unquote journalist. I mean, this kid had literally just got out of college.
I see.
Not too long ago. So he's got to be in his early 20s. And I'm not saying that they can't be journalists or they can't be reporters or whatever, but they're very naive and they're so co-opted. And I don't know if they're aware of that and how unethical that feels, or at least, I guess, I don't know that they realize how much harm that they do,
Right.
how much harm they're doing, not just here in the United States, but in Mexico as well, in Central America, to migrants,
Mm-hmm.
because they basically put a spotlight on a group of people that includes meth heads, drunks, criminals, sexual abusers, and all sorts of trash. Exhibit A behind me.
Exactly.
There's Evan Duke right there.
Mm-hmm.
There's Dwayne Redwater. Juan B. Mancias, the self-proclaimed chief of the non-federally recognized tribe of the Carrizo Comecrudo, or as they now want to be called, the Nash something. I'm not going to say it right. But y'all keep changing your name. Okay, so that's on you also, because you keep changing it.
Exactly.
You don't even give me enough time to learn it before you already changed it to something else.
Yep.
There's a message that these people want to impose. I would say impose. They're not asking, they're telling. They don't want our agreement. They seek our submission.
And dollars.
And you're supposed to bow down to their knowledge they're imposing, because they are the First Nations people. Never mind that they are laterally oppressing Mexicans who are also First Nations people. Hello!
Yep.
But that you are telling a sovereign country, Mexico, what to do about their immigration issues. And they are constantly sending out the message in Mexico right now that Mexico's president is bending over and doing the dirty work of Trump and making Mexico into the border wall. So Mexico itself is going to serve as Trump's border wall. You did it. You built his border wall for him, AMLO.
Yeah.
That is what these so-called human rights coyotes are saying about the president and, of course, the National Guard and the National Institute of Mexican Immigration. Why? Because they are doing their jobs. That's why. And so people are literally throwing a fit at the Matamoros border. They are throwing a fit because they don't want the help from the local government. Just like they did in Tijuana before, and probably will do again as soon as they have more migrants and another caravan, which they've been trying to send that way. They will probably continue to protest on the border because they want the visibility. That's what this is about. There's a message. Many times the messages are orchestrated. They're not even real. But that doesn't matter. The clashes with police, the clashes with other counter protesters, the fact that they're getting their faces in front of a camera and a microphone, that's what counts for them. That's what they base their Go Frauds Me on. That's how they get asked to go here, asked to go there, and have their transportation and their accommodations paid for in all of these camps, in all of these places where these frauds tend to move and go. So we'll get into all of that tonight. But first, I want to thank all of you, not only for your patience as we have continued to get better from whatever this muck in our lungs is, and for all of your messages and your support. And Duke, how can folks send us our emails or contact us?
A bunch of different ways. One way is it's you're on Facebook. So Facebook has been a way of actually being able to send us messages, and it's unlimited how much stuff you can send. And that works pretty well. But if you'd like to do old-fashioned email, you can send Sydney an email at cindy@kpppfm.com. or me, Duke, at kpppfm.com. We have a few other places you can find out more information. We have a YouTube channel. It's Duke1517. We've been doing a variety of super chats live on YouTube and then live on Facebook. It's like we have a couple audiences that merge together, but then we have separate audiences on the different platforms. So we're trying to balance that out. So some shows are on YouTube Live. Some shows are on Facebook Live. The channel on YouTube is Duke 1517. It resolves as Duke Gomez-Schempp, but Duke 1517 is the actual channel name. Please go there and subscribe. That way, whenever we put stuff up, whenever we do a live or we put videos up too, you'll be able to see our content. Also, we have a website at kpppfm.com. It's our main website for our radio station. We're a non-profit, non-commercial radio station in Fargo-Moorhead. We produce programming that gets broadcast on terrestrial radio here in the Fargo-Moorhead area that reaches close to 200,000 people. We're a small community, but we are the largest community between Minneapolis and Spokane, Washington, but we're still rural. We have a couple 100,000 people, or we have over that live here, but we have a reach because we're so flat. Well, we take our shows and we put them this Facebook Live. We take these shows and we put them on YouTube and we put them on our website. So we have another platform that we can share with a little bit more information, some of the links that we use during the shows. We take some of the shows, not all of the shows, we take some of the shows that have a broadcast quality that are more listener friendly, and we'll produce those and edit those and put them on our local radio station. Some shows never show up, and some of the Antifa shows haven't because there's so many swear words and so many things we can't ever do that when we do our regular radio station work, and it's just too cumbersome for me to go through it and try to find all the bleeps and the bleeps and the bleeps. I do sometimes so, but you can always go to kpppfm.com, have a look at a Mexican Crossing Lines, have a look at some of the other programming we do, and also, since we are a nonprofit organization, we have supporters. We get donations. Your donation is tax deductible. We're a nonprofit organization. We're not a fly-by-night Evan Duke that just grabs money and goes go fraud me's and shoves it into his pocket. We're accountable to the IRS. We're accountable to the state government. Your donation helps us build this station. It helps with the ongoing costs to be able to broadcast, the equipment we use, and it basically it helps support us. And thank you to all of you who have supported us in the past. We've had some great supporters. We've had people who have helped fund pieces of our station. We've had foundations help with equipment. We've had all sorts of community that participates in this radio station. So if you would like to be someone who supports us, go to kpppfm.com/donate. Read a little bit more about making a donation and support our work. This work is very valuable. We hope you enjoy it. This is information you're not going to get anywhere else. We're doing the work so you don't have to.
And we're going to start with this, I want to say publication. I think it's only online, called Intercontinental Cry. And Mr. Garet Blair, who we will be talking about tonight, works for this publication. As you can see at the top there, he is the author of this whole long thing, which we're not going to show you all of, because how long was it, Duke? It was
like
massive.
Massive one page web page. I do web page design. This is like everything on one page. It's
awful.
This long. It's really hard to scroll through. It doesn't work very well for what we're trying to show you tonight. We have a little snippet of it, though.
I don't think it works very well for the user of anyone.
No, because you have to scroll down.
And it's got embedded videos from YouTube, some of which I'm going to show you. But I just want you to get an idea of what is published in this publication. I'm going to read a little bit from this page. It starts out, and this is from the October 22nd posting, the most recent posting on this page. And it says that this article is the final installment of a 3-part series by Intercontinental Cry journalist Garet Blair, who spent 6 months in South Texas investigating, quote unquote, human rights and environmental abuses stemming from U.S. immigration policy and border wall construction. Gabby Zavala holds a list in her hand as she makes her way through a maze of nearly 100 tents in a plaza in Matamoros, Mexico. Now, by the way, the headline at the top of this says they're treated like animals. That's what the headline says at the very top. That's the latest headline. The U.S. is abusing asylum seekers, including indigenous migrants. But people are fighting back.
Oh, boy.
Okay? That's the headline. So who's fighting back? Gabby Zavala, apparently, holds a list in her hand, and she makes her way through a maze of nearly 100 tents in a plaza in Matamoros, Mexico, looking for asylum seekers to assist that day. Her organization of volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody works for this organization or makes any money there either.
Nope, and they're out there defending human rights. They're doing the work of God, basically. And they're displayed as these saintly people who are helping the downtrodden, what every American should be doing.
And it says that her organization of volunteers, the Asylum Seekers Network of Support, has already identified a number of people that need help with specific tasks such as case management, helping finding temporary shelter, and navigating the dangers of living on the streets of Matamoros.
Yeah.
Okay? Like most of the families that she assisted that day, a 23-year-old man from Honduras and his toddlers have been living in the plaza next to the Brownsville and Matamoros International Bridge. The site is just an hour from the place where they were kidnapped en route to the U.S. and held for ransom. Okay, so then it has a video, and I'm going to show you. This is the video that we're going to be looking at here. Check it out. Here is an excerpt.
The Migrant Protection Protocols, or also called the Remain in Mexico policy, oddly named that because they don't protect the migrant. These individuals that have already established sponsors or have family members on the U.S. side, they're no longer able to go to their sponsors' homes to await their immigration proceedings. They're immediately sent back to Mexico. So when they go back, they're basically homeless. Upwards to 500 people live outdoors in tents in a plaza, just a park area with benches, eat from food that humanitarian orgs donated.
My name is Gabriela Zavala. I'm the founder of a organization called Asylum Seeker Network of Support.
What we do is we go to the border and go through the camps. A lot of times we are looking for people that we've already identified that need certain help. They have to deal with obtaining basic day-to-day needs like food and shelter. Despite all that, they also have to deal with the element of being targets of organized crime. A lot of the people are in danger because organized crime will kidnap the migrant. A young man was 23 years old. He had a little girl. They were from Honduras, and the gentleman's wife, the little girl's mother, was killed in their country. Upon doing the interview, he disclosed that he had been kidnapped and ransomed in Reynosa, which was an hour away from where they were at in Matamoros. During that kidnapping, they called his sister on the U.S. side to pay $3,000. The sister was trying to come up with money to pay. She had only paid $600, but he noticed the opportunity to escape. And after he escaped, he crossed over to the U.S. to ask for asylum. But upon the processing, they returned him to Matamoros under MPP. He was petrified at being in Matamoros. He was out in the open. He was just staying at the plaza. He didn't have shelter, didn't have family. He didn't have any form of protection for he and his daughter. He was living in constant fear that that same group of people that had kidnapped him were looking for him and find him. The possibility was great for that because Reynosa is not too far away. It's about an hour. It's not so difficult to dispatch people and to find him. And upon talking to Congressman Filemon Vela's office, the representative for our district, I had the conversation about this young gentleman, and they immediately took interest in protecting them. So their office contacted the CBP Port of Entry, and they told them about the situation, and the port director also agreed that they were in danger. During a 3-day process, they were able to verify his story, and he was able to be paroled in the U.S. So he got removed from the migrant protection protocols, and so he's now with his sponsors in the U.S., and so they're away from danger. We advocate for their safety and protection because if there's not people like us or like the volunteer attorneys, their survivability would be very much lower. A lot of times we are the liaisons between Matamoros and Mexico to the resources in the U.S. It's unfortunate that they're over there and that our own U.S. government has sent them back to such an unsafe place. People have already suffered many months on the trip from Central America to Mexico, many months in Matamoros or at the ports of entry to cross over to seek asylum. Then they're held in U.S. detention centers where they're mistreated. They are treated as subhuman. And then instead of the story turning into the nightmare's over and I've made it, and now I'm going to go with my family members who have a home, a loving environment, and perhaps a way to heal from all that trauma, now turns into, now you're going back to the country where you're in extreme danger. There is no safety. There is no family. There is no home. There is no healing. Here, go back and you're going to incur more trauma.
Okay.
Blah, 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 blah,
So
blah, blah.
I wanted you to hear the message.
Yeah.
Do you get the message? Mexico is a poop hole where everyone is dying. Run, it's on fire.
Yeah.
Get all of the migrants that are crossing through Mexico out of there immediately because they need to get to safety in the United States pronto. What?
Yeah, and also the way they spun, which is all spin. The way they spun that all this hard work to get this person into the United States, and then they send him back to where he's in danger because the United States is so heartless. It's all in this premise that people think they can just cross all the way across Mexico and then waltz into the United States, get a piece of paper, and not have to be accountable for 3 years or so until they go to court.
And what about going to a shelter in Mexico?
Yeah, exactly.
What about getting a job while you're in Mexico for months waiting?
Yeah, Mexico will grant you asylum in Mexico. You can become a Mexican citizen. I mean, you can have a new country. You can leave the country you're leaving. But no, in fact, they were coaching people a while back, don't say that you're going to the United States because you want to make better money for your family, because that's not, you can't get granted asylum for that. You have to be in danger and your life has to be in danger. Quit talking about economics, even though people are like, well, that's why I'm doing it. Has nothing to do with me being in danger. Oh, yes, I'm in danger. And then give me my paper.
And also the idea that they're doing the exact same thing they did in Tijuana. They were keeping the people in the tents, in the streets. The Mexican government's like, we need you to go over there to the shelter that we have provided for you. There's showers, there's this, there's that. What were the coyotes, including Paloma's friend, Christina, whatever her name is, that told the press that her name was actually Sonia Vargas.
Yeah.
What were they doing? Lying to people, telling them if you go to the shelter, they're going to deport you.
Yeah.
If you go to the shelter, they don't have any water. If you go to the shelter, there's no electricity. And it's like, who cares? It's a building. Even if all of those things were true, you're still inside of a building.
Yeah.
But these crazy people were keeping them, Mexican people, from helping them, keeping them from receiving the assistance, the shelter, the food, all of that, the medical services that were available, and having them go to job fairs, having them, start to produce and be, good local citizens or community members while they're in Mexico, instead of just demanding that organizations bring them food while they sleep in tents in the streets. And the thing is, it's not Mexican government officials or nonprofits that are providing the food, the assistance to keep them in the streets, in the tents. That it wasn't in Tijuana and it's not in Matamoros. I can guarantee you it is a majority of American organizations and groups that are keeping them in the streets, keeping them from getting a job, an apartment, a work visa, seeking asylum in Mexico. All of the things that they could be doing to make themselves safe immediately, safer immediately. But they won't do that. And, recently Father Solalinde, who is considered one of the greatest human rights defenders of migrants and of migration through Mexico, recently said, and I'll have to share this in my next show because I'm going to go into a deeper dive on him and other things around him, like Hugo Castro of the Border Angels, and their very close relationship, and the close relationship the Border Angels has to this guy. And we all know they're all working with Pueblos Sin Fronteras, but here's the thing. There's been a lot of fighting back and forth because I told you recently, AMLO started saying these caravans are not organic. They didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They are organized by people that are part of organized crime and that are trafficking and smuggling humans. Don't be fooled. He was very, very direct and clear about it. And also, Father Solalinde has publicly said that not only these caravans are they have a lot to do with coyotes and organized crime, exploiting people and putting their lives at risk. But he said that AMLO was right to use the National Guard to push back the migration of this caravan, the most recent one, of Haitians and Africans that had been rioting and had been hurting people in the National Guard, etc. And he said that what they are doing, the migrants that are organized by people involved with coyoteing and organized crime, that what they're doing is wrong, and he said that they needed to be stopped. That the people that are organizing them are exploiting them and putting their lives at risk. So he gave support to the president's use of National Guard to stop the caravan. And this has put a huge rift between quote-unquote human rights defenders, even among friends of Solalindes. There is a rift, at least a public one. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not real. I don't know.
Yeah, might be like a wrestling match.
I don't know. It's very bizarre. I'm trying to stay on top of it and understand it so I can explain it to all of you. But it's hard. And in this article by this propagandaist, that's what he should be called, not a journalist. They talk about this woman who, Gabriela Zavala, is started this Border Support Network organization. And she says in this video that, she started this organization to help the people that are stuck at the border and need to have support while they're stuck there.
Well, of course.
Here is Garet Blair's information from this video, which includes his Instagram and his Twitter accounts. And he also says, hey, you want to help or support by volunteering? Go do it with the Asylum Seekers Network of Support. Okay. So he's not just doing a report on them. He's promoting them, recruiting for people to go and do what he does. Because he is a con artivist as well. He is a person that creates media for the purpose of propaganda. Here is the Facebook page of the Asylum Seekers Network of Support. And there's not a lot on it for an organization. It feels like they just came out of nowhere, just started. They don't have a lot of media. They don't have a lot of activity. And this is the border wall, resisting border wall video, one of the videos on the YouTube channel for Garet Blair. He's got a number of videos. This one is a podcast.
I see.
Can you see the title of the podcast? It says Resisting the Border Wall. That's the name of the show, the podcast.
In defense of indigenous ancestors and an underground railroad outpost.
They want you to know that this place that the Carrizo Comecrudo and Evan Duke and Myron Dewey and sex worker Lilith Sinclair and sex worker Douglas Warren and all of the people that were at the Texas camp that, like the guy there at the very front with the red shirt, this guy, what's his name? I can't remember what his name is right now, but remember he got pulled over by the cops?
Oh, yeah.
And how many other things I showed you where the cops or the Border Patrol were involved there, and they had some kind of a confrontation between them, even with Border Patrol helicopters flying over their camp.
Yeah.
And all sorts of nonsense being spewed by camp goers, including that there were open rounds being fired by cartels
Yeah, I remember
and
that.
all sorts of craziness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Including the video and the crazy military-style war games activities that were going on there by veterans, supposed veterans,
Yep.
and drone pilots.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to remind people who's been at this camp that Garet Blair went to hang out at. Who are we talking about? Are these people that are resisting the border wall?
Mm-hmm.
Who are they? What are they doing? What are they about?
Yep.
Because a lot of them are drunks and doing, criminal stuff.
Exactly.
A lot of them.
Yep.
And going from place to place, getting, detained at the border and chained to a bench like Evan Duke. Myron Dewey got stopped also.
Yep.
So many of the people that have been at this camp had the cops looking for them or trying to arrest them. But, they're still going strong, raising money for their camp and the nonsense that goes on there. And in this audio that was done together jointly by V. Patel, who I think might be the paramour of Mr. Garet Blair. I'm not sure. I'm going to show you some things that led me to believe that they are a couple. But if I misread that, then I apologize. I don't mean to be shipping people that aren't shipped for, in real life. But it looks like they're a thing. And that doesn't mean anything other than they were hanging out, shagging at the camp, presumably, for 6 months with all of these other crazy people, and making these podcasts and long, unwieldy blog posts.
Yeah.
And in this one, I wanted to play a part of it for you to hear what's on this podcast and who did it.
In early June, an unofficial comment coming from an unnamed representative of U.S. Customs and Border Protection stated that border wall construction will avoid the historic Eli Jackson and Jackson Ranch Chapel cemeteries. This report was latched onto by numerous news sources at the time, but contrary to this unofficial report, CBP recently released a proposal to construct approximately 95 miles of new border wall in the South Texas counties of Starr, Hidalgo, and Cameron. Nowhere within this official release does it mention that the Eli Jackson or Jackson Ranch Chapel cemeteries will be spared from border wall construction that could begin as soon as September 30th. And, in fact, maps of the construction that they released, along with the statement, show the wall going through the areas of the cemeteries. This element of the official release has received little attention in the media. Additionally, CBP has not responded to our request for comment on their plans for border wall construction at the cemeteries. Protectors of the cemetery are currently pushing for senators to keep language included in the version of the 2020 Homeland Security Appropriations Bill written by the House of Representatives, which includes language that exempts historical cemeteries such as the Eli Jackson and Jackson Ranch Chapel cemeteries from border wall construction. The bill passed committee markup and will move on to the House and Senate to be voted on soon. My name is Vinisha Patel Adams with bellyofthebeastmedia.org. Through the creation of this piece, I lived for over half a year at Yalui village at the Eli Jackson Cemetery, alongside the Ixtocna peoples of the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe of Texas, who are protecting the resting places of their ancestors and relatives, as well as their sacred homelands of Somisec from border wall construction. Most of the singing you will hear is by Krista Mancias, the next tribal chair of the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe of Texas. This audio piece was produced for the indigenous rights magazine Intercontinental Cry and was adapted from an article by another resident of Yalui village, Garet Blair, for intercontinentalcry.org.
My boyfriend.
This is Resisting the Border, Part 1.
Shama piquis, shama piquis, shama piquis, colma
Stop. Whoa.
I thought that I had left out
That part.
the singing because it makes me a little vomit a little bit in my throat when I hear them, because it's a bunch of people, including a large percentage of white folks, that are appropriating Native American culture and using it in activism to shout down other Americans about laws like immigration policy, the border wall, and abolishing government institutions like ICE, bombing or trying to commit terrorist attacks against institutions and buildings where migrants are inside of, like the Antifa guy recently did that got shot. All sorts of craziness from crazy folks that are being used, that are being said in the name of protecting the sacred, in the name of protecting tradition, in the name of respecting Native cultures and First Nations people, in the name of protecting their resources. But really, what's going on? Who's getting funded? Who are the people behind this? Marianne Thompson Frank being one of the people that sponsors Mr. Carrizo Comecrudo over here.
Yeah.
That lady from Billionaire Wealth and the 7-Eleven fortune.
Oh, yeah, I remember her.
That I told you. Google, or not Google, go to search on our website at kpppfm.com on Marianne Thompson Frank and just watch this woman's shows and how kooky she is.
Yep. Kooky billionaires.
Yeah, that thinks like she's some kind of tribal priestess, and it's like so sad
And also, you know, this
weird.
This issue, you know, I always look for how do you frame an issue, and it's like having a border wall go through a cemetery. You know, perfect issue to try to get people mobilized around, you know, and they've been doing this for like a year. And all sorts of characters that went down there, like Orlando Cruz and all these different people who have Susie Desba. These different criminals from Standing Rock have been going down there and adding their 2 cents worth. And you know, but once again, in this propaganda piece that we just heard, you know, they're trying to say the media has not put attention to this issue, which is a very important issue, and it's written into the 2020 Homeland Security Act that cemeteries should be protected. So why isn't this one? You know, so they're setting up an issue to have a fight, to have visibility, to raise money, you know?
Oh, yeah. And they have all of these media allies like Democracy Now!, the Young Turks, The Intercept. I've shown you a lot of them. I've done entire shows trying to show you these different media allies that they have, that they plant, that they embed, that they hire from the onset, that are there to do a job, to portray a certain image of what's happening to the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe. The majority of the people here are not from that area, and the majority of the ones that are there from the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe, supposedly, are Juan B. Mancias's kids.
Yeah, and you know,
and their family.
And when it comes to federally recognized tribes, there's a bunch of tribes that aren't recognized because the people are all dead. You know, there's not a community. There's different requirements that I've met people who've tried to revive their tribe and try to get federal tribal status, and it's really hard when you only have a couple people that are long descendants from the original people, and it's even hard to prove that they are actually connected to those people. So they get turned down. They never get the federal recognition.
And I don't believe that the majority of the people, like Dwayne Redwater, which is right there with his red bandana behind Mr. Juan Mancias, is Lakota.
Mm-hmm.
He's from Standing Rock. Evan Duke is from Oregon.
Yeah.
You have Douglas Warren, who is from Kansas. You got Jesse Garcia, who I don't know where he's from. I can't remember right now. But you've got people that are not Carrizo Comecrudo, that are not from this tribe, that are not. They have nothing to do with this particular area. That literally came from up here, from up north, because I've recognized many of these folks, or came from California to go be witnesses and play pretend like you're a Carrizo Comecrudo Indian or something.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. All you got to do is put on a bandana or, carry one of these flags, and you just all blend in.
That's right.
Just like they did at Standing Rock.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Nicole Ramos has a lawsuit, and now her friend from Pueblos Sin Fronteras, Alex Mensing, and others of his pals in the coyote business also have a lawsuit against the Trump administration.
Yeah.
And guess what?
What?
So does the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe.
Oh, yeah, standing in line.
Earth Justice is now representing them, and they are, the Ishknosta. Or, I can't do it. I don't know. What did he call them?
I don't.
In the audio recording, V. Patel made it sound like so official, like these are all real, and this is a real tribe of Indians, and this is a real experience in teepees and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I lived there.
Yeah, for 4 months.
Yauli. 6 months.
6 months.
In Yauli Village.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like Standing Rock. It's so oh my God.
They get their badges of courage, their street cred that they've been christened. They've stayed in a tent, for through the nice weather, not so much through the winter, but this is the southern part of the United States.
And they get adopted.
And they get adopted.
And then
they
they're
get their
their
names.
Hoka
They get their names, new names given
Indian
to them. They
name.
get little things they carry around,
And then they get the water protector tattoo.
and a medal sometimes.
And sometimes they get a little water droplet made by some other,
Cultural appropriator. Yep.
some other con man.
Mm-hmm.
I know some of you don't know what I'm talking about, but
Watch our shows, you'll figure it out.
there's a lot of fraudsters.
Yeah.
That's all I can tell you. Lots and lots and lots of fraudsters. And I don't know why people just eat it up when it's about Indians. They're like, yes, I need to eat some of that stuff up. What if they're fakes, though? What does that not matter?
Yeah.
And they're trying to tell Mexicans who are also First Nations people, what they can do and what they can't do. And there's a message behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they're raising money all the time because now they have a lawsuit against the Trump administration. Don't you want to give to that? You know what the consensus is since Standing Rock? People in America, all you have to do, just like you're some kind of boxer or something, some kind of champion for the masses that hate Trump in America. If you set up a fraud me and you say, I'm going to sue the president.
Yeah.
I'm going to sue him into oblivion and he's going to go to jail.
Oh, yeah.
People will give you money.
Mm-hmm.
People will give you millions of dollars on this, crazy dream that this is going to be his demise.
Yeah. And they all lead to dismissal. They all get buried in bureaucracy. In fact, they hope they get buried in bureaucracy because they can continue to raise money. But when they flat out get dismissed right away and they have to do an appeal, that's going to take a lot more money. And also, it punches a hole in their fundraising. We've seen it at Standing Rock. There was several lawsuits filed, and they just kind of silently went away because they were dismissed, but they didn't want to tell anyone. They still wanted to raise money. And other ones were dismissed, and they're like, we're going to do an appeal. We're going to do all this great stuff. We need $40 million more, And you're going to need that sort of money to actually fight against the government. And it's going to take years. It's going to take a decade, It just ain't going to happen as quick, and they'll bleed people dry until they won't give any more.
And Garet Blair may very well be the sort of, new age, millennial, progressive do-gooder with the white savior complex that, like Joshua Nichols and so many of these other people that we see living and working in Mexico, that they feel like this is, like you said, their cred, their street cred.
Mm-hmm.
They mingled with the Indians liked them.
Lived amongst them for months.
You looked for a fake experience with a bunch of fake people and fraudsters and sellouts of their own people. And you sought them out, and you chose them. You chose to put them in positions of leadership and authority, and to feature them in your documentaries, in your stories, in your movies, etc. Because you're naive or because you're dumb. Because you have no discernment if the people, all of the people, a large percentage of the people that you are featuring as indigenous leadership and representation of indigenous nations, when you're choosing people that are self-proclaimed coyotes, self-proclaimed thugs, criminals, meth heads, etc., what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we have found time and time and time again. And when you bring it to the attention of many of these white saviors that showed up in Mexico recently with these Antifa people causing mayhem, continuing their activities at these Texas camps, as they go for round 2 or round 3 on these caravans that are going to be coming through again.
Yep.
They think they're immune to criticism. You bring up the fact that they're being exactly what they claim they are not. Douchey, imperialist dude bros telling the Mexican government and the Mexican people what to do about immigration and calling them racists for doing their jobs. And the reality is that when it is brought to their attention, they simply shield themselves with the nonsense spewed to them like an absolution chamber, that they are being a good ally because they're giving voice, they are giving wings, they are giving support, they are giving resources to a person that identifies as a person of color, a Native American, what have you. Even if that person doesn't adequately or shouldn't be representing anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. But I know it does a lot of harm. I know it does a lot more harm than good. Garet Blair is just a young man, as I said. This is his profile from Facebook. And as you see at the very top of his Facebook page, there's a post from Gabby Zavala, that woman that appears in the video, in the article. And she is talking about the Asylum Seekers Network of Support and links to it, and talks about how there are kidnapping victims that are being forced to stay in Mexico. Thanks for the amazing story.
Oh, yeah.
GoFraudMe.com,
Yeah.
shelter for asylum seekers.
Yep, exactly.
There's hey, give me your money. Give me your money now. And then you see that he is adventurous, like a rock climber. He's hanging there from a rope. Says he's into journalism, and that keep going. I guess that's it.
Yep.
We also have Garet Blair's, oh, there we go, a post about his car from September. You want to read that?
Okay. Garet Blair car home is at a junkyard in Arizona from after the engine died last Saturday. But after a several-day train ride, I, along with most of the needed belongings, just made it safely back to upstate New York, where I'll come to report remotely for the time being, along with other work, until I can make enough funds to get on the road again. After a long series of issues and difficult life situations lately, so grateful for all the support. Thank you so much again to everyone who has reached out, helped with the funds, gave support and advice along with wishes, and to Aunt Karen and Uncle Rich in the help getting back.
So his car home, meaning that he lived out of his car,
broke down
and is now dead.
Yeah.
And he would like your money.
Yeah, give me some more money.
And so he did a fundraiser for that.
Yeah.
And here in this next post, you'll see that Garet is withdrawing red water in this post, tagged in this post. He did the video on it.
Oh.
And it is from an action that took place in Donna, Texas. He's not just a reporter, he's an activist too. And in the video, they are at a detention facility where there are people protesting.
Ah.
This is the video.
Dwayne Redwater, Standing Rock Sioux Nation, sings in prayer for the people held within. 5 indigenous children have died in U.S. custody. Most of the children died after getting sick inside U.S. concentration camps. Thousands of children have been separated from their families at the border. And the Trump administration has continued these separations even after a court order to halt the process last year. U.S. soldiers acting as prison guards are monitoring, and children held in Donna camp. Some view this as a breach of federal law banning active duty troops from acting as a police force within the U.S. border. Even so, Vice President Pence, after visiting both Donna and McAllen, Texas camps, have congratulated extraordinary and compassionate and providing care for every American would be proud of. Now, you know, I'm trying to, this is again is a propaganda piece. I don't know when it's dated, but they've been spinning that. I mean, the U.S. government has responded to camps. There have been horrible conditions, you know, and this is before the migrant caravans started coming through. There was a lot of problems, and the caravans started coming through. Then there was even more problems, and the United States has tried several things to remedy that, but that push and what these people have been doing is they've caused that problem that they were addressing there to become worse.
Here's the thing that really gets me, though. Do you think any of the people inside that he was singing for heard him?
Nah, they didn't have any idea he's out there.
Of course not. It's for show. It isn't any different than Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez posing in front of a gate and
true.
Crying like she's upset about an empty parking lot, which is what she was looking at. She was supposedly be gazing upon a detention facility and crying bitter tears of sadness. Right? It's meant to cause outrage.
Yes, exactly.
It's meant to make you feel outraged, because then you will put your hand in your wallet and give them your money.
And dig deep.
And they are always giving you the cue. Give me the money.
Give me the money.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Why? And of course, they get very angry when we, a non-profit, non-commercial radio station that has literally taken themselves out of the commercialized settings so we don't have to answer to anyone but our audience, our sponsors. People get upset about that and they say, you're no different because you ask for money too. Yes, through our federally recognized 501c3 for which we are accountable to the federal government and the IRS. I would love to see some of these fraudsters file with the federal government and make themselves transparent to the entire country and the world. But they don't.
Yep.
But they don't. And you start looking into the background of a lot of these organizations, as we did when we went deep dive investigation into a lot of these nonprofit rescue groups that went to Puerto Rico. By the way, I'm going to have part 2 on that for you very soon.
All right.
I'm going to do another show about the fraudsters in Puerto Rico because now they're frauding in the Bahamas, just like I predicted that they would.
Mm-hmm.
They're there. And I have to tell you about it now.
Yep.
So I'm working on that as well. But let me just tell you that the reality behind what they are doing is setting you up. He, just like Dwayne Redwater went to pound his drums in front of the playa's wall at night, it's supposedly for the people. It's the song. It's the sacred blah, 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 blah. No, it's for show. It's for money. It's for clicks. It's for views. That's what it's for. And you putting out your GoFraudMe that is transparent to nobody, or your PayPal or your Venmo, that is transparent to nobody, does not equate to the same as a nonprofit radio station requesting tax-deductible donations from our listeners and viewers to do the work of reporting news that doesn't get reported anywhere else.
Yep.
About people that would rather not have a spotlight on them. Like Garet Blair.
Exactly.
Like all of these folks that do this journalism for hire. What's the name of the other guy? Rob Wilson.
Yeah, Rob Wilson.
Unicorn Riot. There's so many guys. There's so many. It's not even funny. It's like, are there any real independent journalists left?
No, just a guy with a phone.
That are not co-opted, that are doing professional work. There's not a lot of them. I've had the pleasure and the honor of working with some of them. I highly respect and think they're amazing journalists, like Oscar El Burro Ramirez, like Alfredo Alvarez, like Ibrahim Aros, like Beto Alfa Noticias, and there are others in Mexico and in the United States that I have respect for. But Unicorn Riot is not one.
No.
The Intercept is not one. TYT is not one. And I could go on.
Yep.
But this is of the same ilk, the same propaganda ilk. Garet Blair. And we need to know how they operate, where they come from. In this post, Garet is sharing Doug Warren, sex worker guy.
Yeah.
His post saying that he misses him so much. And they stood alongside each other. Mad respect, homies. I do miss Dwayne singing. See, I told you they were doing drugs.
Yeah.
I told you they were. You can't listen to that and like it. Nuh-uh. No, they're drinking and doing drugs at this camp for sure. Look, here's the profile picture of Garet Blair with a little heart emoji, and the photo was taken by V.
Oh, okay.
So this is one of the reasons I intuited that they were a couple.
Okay.
And Garet Blair is not an independent journalist that was just embedded with the camp. He's homies. He's homies that stood side by side. Right? Let's get it very clear who these people are and what they are doing, because they would have you believe that this independent story by this independent journalist has nothing to do and is not connected and hasn't been connected to their friends, to the people that they work with and for. Garet posted about this protest march at one of the many, some very poorly attended, not so much this one, march that they had with a bunch of people at the Butterfly Center. And here is the story or the video Garet did on this.
What they flee from. We created what they flee from. back. What do we do?
My name is Mariana Trevino Wright. I'm the executive director of the National Butterfly Center in Mission, Texas. I discovered government contractors here on our private property in July of 2017, cutting down our trees, mowing down brush, widening a road. They said they had been sent by the government to do that ahead of the border wall. We had no notice, no legal action, certainly no permission granted for that activity. And since that time, I have been a very vocal advocate against the border wall and against what we feel are violations of our constitutionally protected rights here in the United States.
Wow.
And there we have the lady that has been in the media promoting the Butterfly Village and everything that goes along with it. And by the way, remember, they have now not only raised money for the camp and other camps that they're going to have, and for the individuals camping there, glamping there, hanging out, hiding out from the authorities, getting pulled over, getting arrested, videotaping confrontations with the Border Patrol, what have you, doing their little theater for their media friends and allies and contacts. Come on down and hang out and have a good old time with these folks, because that's what they were doing. That's what they've been doing. And here is a photo. Is that next?
Yeah.
From the website where V and he both did this long blog post that goes on forever and ever and ever called Butterflies versus Borders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the whole, cemetery and the little church.
And the butterflies.
And the butterflies and the trees and the lizards and the habitat.
Yep.
In the picture, you can see Orlando Cruz right in the front with this big medallion, beaded medallion around his neck. You see Christina, the daughter, the one that you heard briefly singing there, which I apologize again for, in the background. You've got Susie Desba, a.k.a. Vanessa Dundon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of Standing Rock fame, who had her eye damaged when she was out there in the confrontation with police on November 20th. The leader of the so-called unfederally recognized Carrizo Comecrudo tribe, Juan Mancias. And you have Doug Warren with his always puffy green jacket, vest, and some guy over there that looks like he's in war paint or, I don't know, camouflage something. I don't know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of course, right in front next to Orlando Cruz is V. Patel.
Okay.
This photo, again, is by Mr. Garet Blair.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many others in the storytelling. Basically, the long form diary of what these yahoos were doing out at this camp.
Yep.
But we heard it all. It just seeped out in the videos from the cuckoos that you brought to your camp, like Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
We heard about it. We found out about it. We were like, oh my God. Because he was talking, as you know, about how there was border patrol and cartel shootouts, and that he was going to need a bulletproof vest, and he needed a press drone that wasn't registered to him that could get captured and he wouldn't go to jail for whatever it was doing at the time. And he also started crying and had fits of crying and rage. And I guess that's what meth does. I'm not sure, but you saw some of the crazy. It didn't matter to the Carrizo Comecrudo chairman who went to Standing Rock and met a lot of these people from Standing Rock and invited them to his camp. including Evan Duke and Orlando Cruz and so many others who already had a reputation for being addicts, abusers, not the kind of person you bring to play a sacred instrument at your camp like the drum. You don't bring a person that is struggling with meth addiction in such a harsh way that you literally had to pay for him to stay at a hotel.
Yep.
Because you could not deal with his crazy all day and all night at your camp, where you have people like Jesse Garcia, who the cops went to look for, and the guy here at the very front of this line, whose name escapes me right now. I know one of you folks watching can name him. He got arrested, or he got pulled over. I showed you a video of that. Something Camp, is that his name? Dang it, I can't remember. Anyway, folks, here is the drum he went down there to play, and Juan Mancias is letting him sing, presumably, into the microphone as he is leading a prayer.
Yeah.
What does it say on the picture, dude?
It's really hard for me to read. Juan Mancias, left chairman of the Comecrudo, and Orlando Cruz, right, of the Saint Anta Pueblo of the National Butterfly Center, singing at a march against the border wall on the banks of the Rio Grande River by Ecosex photo Garet
Blair.
I remember that. I remember watching this when he did this. It was like they're getting ready for the big march, and there's like 6 people. They were hyping it up. We're gonna have a big march tomorrow. Everybody come down here, and it's like there's like 6 people, and they went over to this little dock. A bunch of people standing on the bank. 6, 7 people standing there. And Orlando Cruz doing his thing.
The people that sponsored these yahoos and fraudsters from Standing Rock allowed them to continue to believe that they were celebrities and that they would bring prestige if they showed up. People would be like, it's happening again. It's Standing Rock 2.0. Come on, everybody. We know what that's going to be like. It's going to be like a methed out festival. Let's go do it. These are pictures of the people, just to give you a reminder of who was out there.
Yeah.
Talking openly about sex workers and their sex work. Like Doug Warren. And there's V. Patel and Blair behind her in this picture, the very top picture. And as you can see, they added a bunch of pictures of other members of the camp. So you scroll down just a wee bit, you can see there's a whole series of pictures that were added to this, which we're going to look at so you can get an idea of all the folks that were there. Here is Bobby Mason, one of the drone pilots, as you may recall, and some other dude who I don't recognize, but definitely doesn't look like he's one of the guys from the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe.
No.
And neither is Mason Bobby, and neither is Warren. Next, we have Warren and people from the camp at some dude's house who's raising his fist and looks like he's smoking a doobie. I don't know. And then, and a lot of these folks look really young, right? Notice that. They're at some like internet cafe. I don't know. They look like they're hanging out indoors somewhere where they get electricity and they're using their computers. And you've got Garet Blair, and across from him is V. Patel. And then in this next one, you've got the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe leader, his daughter all the way over to the right, and then you've got Dwayne Redwater and so many others of these folks. A lot of them look like little kids. Am I wrong?
It looks
or
like
am I right? Or am I right?
Must have been Youth Day. Youth Day at the protest.
No, I'm telling you.
Bring your youth to the protest.
Their tribe consists of a bunch of the kids from this 1 or 2 families.
Okay.
It's
all right.
really weird. Although this guy, Christopher Balsadou, a guy that I can't remember if I did a segment on talking about him and how he is like a Arizona professor, was briefly, didn't make it through 3 years. I don't think he was out after 3 years. There's some kind of scandal involved. Anyway, guy in the red shirt there is that Christopher Bolsadu. He claims to be part of the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe. I don't know. Again, it's not a federally recognized tribe, so I don't know who you christens you as part of the tribe. Do they do it like they did at Standing Rock? Because it's an iffy process if that's the case. And you see Doug Warren in there wearing a, what is that? CCCP? Is that like that's for the Russian flag, isn't it? Or the Russian, yes. And there's Garet Blair in the front, all the way in the front. V. Patel in the picture. So we know a lot of the people that are in this picture are neither Native American nor from any tribe.
Exactly.
In this next one, we've got the same Warren wearing the same Soviet-themed shirt with a bunch of women in a car. And in this next picture, there's a bunch of kids and some of the older people there. Looks like his girlfriend again. Here's Warren and V and some other dudes, most of whom look like older white people. They're not from the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe. I just want to emphasize how few of the Carrizo Comecrudo we ever see. Ever seen. We've got Warren with Mexicans here, or Latinos, or locals. Here's another one with some more kids and a dog. And we have Orlando Cruz and Vanessa Dundon. So we've got the same dude, Orlando Cruz, drone pilot, that made a name for himself, as did Vanessa Dundon. For their confrontations with the cops, for their drone piloting, for the craziness that they were known for, either as addicts, etc. And this is who was at the camp. These are the folks reporting and witnessing and fighting the border wall. A guy, like I said, they had to keep at a hotel because he was so messed up on meth that he couldn't even sleep. He was doing videos all hours of the night,
doing his
like a crazy person.
Exactly, his reporting.
And that was his reporting. And he's like, I couldn't stay over there because they're sleeping on the graves. And I'm too spiritual for that. And I'm like, no, you are super messed up on something, and they can tell. I mean, he did videos like this one where he looks like he's possessed by Satan. Here's just a clip of the crazy. It looked like he was like moving his lip. Look at his eyes. Do you see that? Whoomp. He goes backwards all the way.
It's one of his late night reports.
Yeah.
He streamed this and left it on his page.
Yep. Look at his eyes. And then he comes back. He doesn't even know where he went. I can't hear him.
Yeah, it's all louder kids.
Oh.
I wish there was more people that would come down here. Just to see.
Look at his eyes. Oh my God, it's so scary. I'm so scared.
Who knows, he might not want to leave.
Did you hear what he said? Who knows, you may not want to leave. Oh my God. The power of Christ compels you.
Right.
Oh my God.
I'm going to try. I'm going to try and go to bed. Get a little rest. Okay.
Get a little rest.
I don't know what the plans are.
I'm terrified by this. It was so horrifying. I showed you the whole thing. I showed you just little clips of some of the craziest things that he did in his video. These were the people at the camp. Here's Errol Medicine. Did we already do that one, or is it coming up?
It's coming up somewhere.
Okay, hold on. I'll bring up Errol Medicine, giving you his testimony in a minute. But here, is another one of the people, as you recall, that was at the camp, Brendan Tucker. He was also from Brownsville. He was also from that area. Remember, he was feeding people that were staying on the bridge. And here he is at the camp with Doug Warren. Then we have the Carrizo Comecrudo truck, with their emblem on the side there. Or here's one in front of the river with some other camp goer. Here they are eating noodles. There's Brendan with a mouthful of noodles. Look at him. He looks like a chipmunk. And then we've got the Carrizo Comecrudo, the butterfly lady. We got the Carrizo Comecrudo truck. We've got Dwayne Redwater and the lady that, is the executive director of the Butterfly Village or whatever the heck.
Yep.
Then here's the Evan Duke protest group that includes this anthropologist, former professor for a hot minute, Christopher Balsadou, and V. Patel, right?
Yep.
And and Doug Warren, all these people that went down at the Border Patrol offices
and just staged the photo.
Staged these photos. Yeah, they protested and they staged
big protest.
A big these photos with their fists in the air.
Mm-hmm.
And here he is with Bobby Mason Leonard, the drone pilot, in 2017. So it wasn't like they met at camp.
Yeah.
And here he is in 2015. Is that 2015 or 16? Running around Philadelphia with a cutout of Bernie Sanders. Lots of news around this image. I saw it in a lot of different places. This is just one example. And here, of course, is Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks taking a photo with Garet Blair.
Wow.
In addition to the fact that Garet Blair participated in Protect Sacred Sites protests with indigenous people, as you saw, including Bobby Mason Leonard, and of course, like Lolly B and so many of the people that we saw coming out of Standing Rock, he lived in his car as well. And this is his post about when he got the car that he just put in the graveyard, in the junkyard that we started off the show at.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how he's a homeowner and he's standing on top of his home.
Oh, I see.
Which is a picture of a car.
Mm-hmm.
And he says he's the lucky tenant of this used, cozy, very cozy one-bedroom home, pictured below. Well, it has central air, heat, smells like air fresheners. Hopefully stays that way. Integrated sound system throughout all rooms in the home. Mobile, and all the doors in my house lock with click of a button.
Mm-hmm.
Living out of my car this summer and for the foreseeable future to save on rent, be more mobile for journalism projects, and to call whichever mountainside or parking lot I want my backyard. Understandably, not the lifestyle for everyone, but this is definitely one that brings me the most peace.
Mm-hmm.
If you're curious on how I'm making it work, I'll be writing some pieces for it on the outdoor adventure travel magazine I run, Karuna Outdoor.
Well, it probably has indoor plumbing too.
No, it doesn't. It does not have indoor plumbing. Of course, he was also at the Dakota Access Pipeline protest at Standing Rock.
Yeah.
Here is his photo from it with the teepees in the background.
That's right.
He loves the life.
Yep.
And here is one of him with a sheriff in front of his car.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't show this, and this is also from when Standing Rock was going on because it's from the dates that Standing Rock was that he was still at Standing Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And as you will see, they took a bunch of journalists and went down to Standing Rock to stay there for months, as he put in this post. And he had the blessing of his family because in that previous post, which I didn't take a picture or screen capture of, further down, one of his relatives says that he has a very proud dad. And if he wants, they'll be happy to bring in more donations and support.
Really?
So, yep. And of course, they say they're going to stay. How many months? The journalists said in their post, we're going to stay for
6 months or something like that.
Let me see. I would like to see that so we can read it, please.
Go back.
Because it was on the screen for like seconds, and I didn't get to read any of it.
This one here?
Yep, that's the one. In fact, why don't you read some?
So make it a little bit bigger.
That would be great.
So we can see it and read it.
Yep.
There we go. Garet Blair. Now more than ever, we must band together and unite around just causes. We cannot afford to be bystanders. Over Thanksgiving break, we are taking a team of activists, journalists, and photographers out to Standing Rock, North Dakota for 11 days. We hope to help spread the stories of people that aren't being heard and to bring awareness to help stop the Dakota Access Pipeline. We're posting our updates, see more, and it has a bunch of tags there. Different people.
So they went to Standing Rock.
And
that's...
And Mary Blair says, be safe.
Right. So, journalists for hire.
Journalists for hire.
And of course, they don't tell you about all of the clashes, orchestrated clashes with police and Border Patrol. They don't tell you about the drug use, some of the other assaults, rapes, all the things that happened at Standing Rock that we heard about afterwards, that people were angry, were being reported, like what happened to Kathleen Bennett, because it hurt the movement. That doesn't get told. We see it seep out, like we saw in the Orlando Cruise videos. It just comes out. We find out what a poop show they really got going on there.
It oozes out.
But they don't report it. They don't put it in the media. They don't let you know. Like this video put out by Air All Medicine about Evan Duke. Wonder why they didn't stop talking to him, working with him.
Yeah.
This is Earl Medicine. Been a long time since I did a live feed. I'm here to ask you guys not to support Evan LaDuke any longer, as he is drinking once again, and we all know the outcome of what happens when he drinks. And as far as him as a leadership role, he was never in a leadership role. I'm asking everybody that supports him to understand the reason why he's being asked to step down. One, we don't treat our women in a disrespectful manner. And as far as I know, he's never ever apologized to the women in Tijuana or any other place. And now he's down in Texas drinking as we're speaking now, and he's the one that's asking people to sign a piece of paper not to drink and do these things while you're there. And he's doing exactly what he's not supposed to be doing. So I'm asking everybody that supports him, please don't go down there and make a fool about what's happening, because it's not what's going on down there. We need our people to do it in a good way. We don't need people that are down there drunk, raising hell, doing these things and trying to find out what's going on. You go down there and you support Juan. That's his land, his people's land. You honor that man. You do the things that he's asking of. You don't go down there and be a drunk and think it's some damn party, because it's not a party. That's where we're going down there to fight for our rights as indigenous people to live and to help our relatives that are down there, so that the imaginary line that's there can still be imaginary without a wall crossing through. And the desecration of all the land and the landmarks and the cemeteries and the butterfly sanctuaries and people's private property that the government's trying to take away once more. We know from our past experience throughout the world, the Roman Wall showed no purpose. The Berlin Wall did no purpose.
Okay, he goes on for a while ranting about this stuff, but
Yeah.
notice he's like, hey, we can't have this nonsense of these people that are high and messed up and booze and assaulting people. And he didn't apologize to them women. Like, what did he do?
What did he do? Yeah, I was wondering the same thing.
He's like, we all know what happens when he gets drunk. No, we don't.
No, we don't. I haven't heard it.
I'd like to know the details of what happens. Because he didn't apologize for it in Tijuana. And he's obviously aware of the fact that the guy is drinking as we speak. This is an old video, but at the time, he's like, he's drunk right now. Right now, he's drunk.
Yeah.
And so they're telling on each other. You think Errol Medicine missed seeing Orlando Cruz high out of his damn mind?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
It's very noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to watch his live streams.
Yeah.
It's going to happen sooner or later. You're going to say, he's going to say or do something wackadoo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously, like, how did you miss that? How do you miss the craziness of Dwayne Redwater or any of these folks? How do you miss it? And you only talk about this one little thing. You only talk about this one little thing. What did I tell you happened at Standing Rock? And then one after another of these rapists, of these fraudsters, of these sexual assaulters, of these folks doing all of these criminal things kept popping up and kept popping up. And there was all of these fights and attacks and people like yours truly that were reporting on the frauds, on the things that these folks were involved with, were being attacked by other so-called water protectors and activists for simply sounding the alarm. Don't you see that when you put something together that has nothing behind it that is real, everyone knows that the intent is fraudulent and that it isn't real. That's why they don't respect it. That's why they treat it like a party, because it is, because it was at Standing Rock, because it wasn't about the water and it wasn't about sacredness, and it wasn't. Not for a lot of these fraudsters and paid activists and guns for hire journalists.
Exactly.
Not for them. It was going to be a party. It was supposed to be very dramatic. It was supposed to be set up and a lie. And that's how they treat it. So don't act like, oh, you're not treating it in the sacred fashion that you set it up so that it's all fake. And you want people to think that it's sacred? And you're using people like this? Nobody believes that. Nobody believes that, please. And this Belly of the Beast media, like so much of what we saw, looks like it was haphazardly pasted together with tape.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to even read this. The blue on the green. And
look at the fonts.
God, it's horrible.
Look at the fonts. I just want you to scroll a little bit through this. Notice they have the story of the Mexican, excuse me. Let me try again.
U.S.-born citizen held by ICE.
U.S.-born citizen held
Yeah.
by ICE. We saw that story. And then look at this font.
Yeah, you can't read this.
What is that even?
It's italicized and it's transparent.
And then, of course, these are, I wanted you to go all the way to the bottom there because those are the only other 4 stories.
I see.
On the whole website.
Okay.
Does this look like this is like professional, the Belly of the Beast media, like?
No, just starting out.
Do you want anyone to read this stuff? Because you literally need a microscope to read that font. It's crazy. In another part, there is a better picture with a
readable
caption.
text. Actually has readable text on this one.
And if you could read that, it'd be great.
Yes. Francisco Irwin Galicia, a high school senior born in Dallas, Texas, calling his mother for the first time after being released from nearly a month of illegal detainment in U.S. detention centers. Francisco's full story is explained at the end of this piece.
Right. So he was there for that. And by the way, guess what? there's a controversy about this young man being detained. There was a lot of outrage.
Mm-hmm.
There was a protest that we're going to see in just a moment that was videotaped at the location. And people were upset, and justly so, because what is a U.S. citizen doing sitting in a detention facility?
Exactly.
Like a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
And even still to this day, Duke remains in limbo because he still has a court date coming up.
Really?
Yeah, it's like it's not over.
Okay.
According to this story posted on October 4th, excuse me, he is having a hard time having his life go back to normal because he spent almost a month in custody with the Border Patrol and Immigration Enforcement detention facility. And also he's a high school student.
Yeah.
But 2 months after his release from custody, they're still processing him for deportation.
Really?
Even after his story made national news and his attorney provided his Dallas County birth certificate to immigration authorities. But there are reasons why you may not think they're fair or correct or what have you, but there are reasons why this happened in the first place. This wasn't a, okay, he was obviously profiled because he's brown, and so they just like, oh, you must not be a citizen, and they try to get rid of him. And it does make people feel outraged because, you know, it smacks of racism, and it is obviously no fun to be in a detention facility for any amount of time, but it was there for a month, you know, like, that's a long time.
It is.
According to several sources, including a GoFundMe set up for him, he lost a lot of weight because he didn't have adequate food.
Yeah.
Again, remember this overreaching story in the propaganda from Garet Blair, from his page, from the sites, from his work with V. Patel, is that
I see. Okay. This is his story.
They're treated like animals.
Gotcha.
Remember the first headline at the top?
They're treated like animals.
Right. And the reality is, his story was even shared by, during congressional hearings by California Congressman Ted Lieu. And according to investigation into his being put into detention, there was a lot of different contradictory documentation that was provided by his mother, who is undocumented, and his brother, who also is undocumented and was deported, that made it really suspicious. That made him, they made immigration authorities suspicious that he may not be correctly representing himself as a U.S. citizen.
Oh, I
he could
see.
be lying about it because he had a type of ID that mostly only people that cross every day and don't have citizenship in the United States use. And it's more complicated than that.
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying to say. It's more complicated.
Now, it's clear cut that this U.S. citizen just got thrown in detention for a month.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a little bit more complicated than that. And in the article from KRGV News about him being in legal limbo that was posted on October 7th, it explains that his brother was deported after the agency discovered he had overstayed a tourist visa. Galicia was held at the partial detention facility for over 3 weeks. In the meantime, Galan Francisco Edwin Galicia is the guy that was the U.S. citizen that was held in ICE custody. And I think Galan is his brother. Galan submitted his birth certificate showing Galicia was born in a Dallas hospital.
Okay.
So, Galan is the attorney. Excuse me. Galan is the attorney for this guy. So, she also showed documents that as evidence of his citizenship. She explained that they submitted DNA proof that his mom is Francisco's mother. Also, they submitted that a social security card, a Texas ID, and medical benefits card. I sent a statement at the time that explained that there were conflicting reports regarding the status of his citizenship. Yet, on July 23rd, Galicia was released from detention. By then, he'd lost 26 pounds. Galan said he'd been working on improving his health overall. And now he's also had to go to medical treatment and psychological sessions with his counselor. And he will have to prove he is a citizen to an immigration judge.
Yeah.
So, there was a birth certificate which was registered with the date after his U.S. birth certificate was created.
I see.
So that was suspicious. The government also questioned a pseudonym that was used by his mom on the birth certificate because it wasn't her name.
I see.
His mother's name. And they claimed that she used a pseudonym instead of her real name to explain why his birth certificate doesn't have his mother's real name on it. They also had a record of Galicia's travel through U.S.-Mexico border and called attention to the use of a border crossing card, a travel document more commonly used by non-citizens that his mom had obtained for him. Testimony offered in court suggested economic and marital circumstances led to the creation of a Mexican birth certificate and the pseudonym used on the U.S. birth certificate. Both of those issues later affected Galicia's ability to apply for a passport, thus having to resort to a border crossing card.
Oh, okay.
Galan explained ICE had the ability to dismiss the claim, but decided to file in immigration court. The notice to appear in court does not currently have a scheduled date. But so he is basically still in limbo. And by the way, this guy has a GoFundMe. Here is his GoFundMe. Here is his GoFundMe for his freedom. How much money did they want to raise for Mr. Francisco's freedom? You have to scroll. Oh, who made this? Who created this?
Sam Magdaleno.
Yeah.
I remember when she was talking about this.
I didn't know she created a GoFundMe for him.
I didn't know that either.
And for how much?
I don't see the number on it.
Yes. Keep going down then. You'll see it. They were collecting...
She's telling the story here.
15... somewhere around the... Maybe it's to the right. Go all the way to the right.
There's nothing there.
Well, the goal was for $50,000.
$50,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
The goal was for $50,000, of which they've only collected around 1,000, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I apologize that I somehow cut it off when I was screen capturing the page. Point is, GoFundMe. GoFundMe for him being in a detention facility.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it affected his health, because he's still in legal limbo. A lot of reasons. Questions I have about how all of these GoFundMes are popping up. We don't really get to see whether or not the money goes to what it says. Did we skip the video?
Yeah, you did.
Go back to the video that tells the story. Here is the video. Is that the right one? No, here.
Don't worry about it. I got it. I got you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The student was held by ICE. U.S.-born citizen was detained by Border Patrol at... He was driving to high school with friends to a soccer scouting event for college scholarships in Houston. He's taken into custody and held at U.S. concentration camp for 3 weeks. Francisco was not allowed to make a single phone call, not even to his attorney or to his mother, of course, because it's not. Here's a protest.
This is a part of it that you didn't hear about, the protest.
Yeah. Okay.
Calderon reached out to the media and grassroots activists throughout Texas
about his case.
In his case.
And they released him on July 23rd, went to Parasol, Texas, where Francisco is held, presented documents to ICE, presented an interview with the deportation officer, and wanted to conduct before releasing Francisco.
And then they did.
Yeah.
A lot of media. Look
Yep.
at all the media.
Yeah.
You got like 5 or 6 people there protesting.
Yeah.
Not a very big amount of people protesting. No. It's almost like performance art, isn't it?
Oh, it is performance art. That's what protests are, especially nowadays.
Mm-hmm. I didn't live this experience alone. Can you turn it up? It was a very horrible experience. The 23 days I was over there. They treated me better here. I really don't want to talk about it. The 23 days I was out there, it is unexplainable. Con la patrulla Border Patrol? Yeah. And they're saying F the Border Patrol, F the Migra is, immigration officials. F immigration, basically. Officials. This guy looks pretty frustrated.
Yeah, he says, go back to the sidewalk, get off the land.
Obscenities at him.
If you don't move back, we're going to arrest you.
He's telling them to get back.
No, they got to yell at the wall. No,
You're not alone.
Yeah. He can't hear you. He's not even in there anymore. And they're showing the wall. Where's Ocasio-Cortez?
Belly of the Beast
Belly
Media.
of the Beast Media.
Okay. This is what they're producing. This is for whom they're producing it. And the activism behind it and the money raising and the yada-da-da-da.
Uh-huh.
Here's another article that came out of there from the Carrizo Comecrudo. And in it, they interview Juan B. Mancias. Both of the B. Carrizo Comecrudo.
Oh, got the wrong one there. There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, more from that webpage?
Yeah.
God.
And here's a video that he was in.
Oh, there we go.
My name is Juan Mancias. I'm the tribal chair. That's my title for the Carrizo Comecrudo tribe of Texas. And here at the Eli Jackson Cemetery, or Jackson Brewster Cemetery, which is a Texas historical site that's being threatened by, some ignorance of a wall or something like that. And the place here was called El Capote. So it's got a name, so it means that there was villages here of our tribal people. So we as Aboriginal, as the original people of Texas, have Aboriginal inherent rights to this area. And so we have a duty to the ancestors. I can't tell you how many sacred sites have been probably, looted, and over the last, 150 years, just to build even the levee that's here next to us. There is oral witnessing to the fact that they were digging the canal and the levee here, and they were, throwing bones to the side, like they were nothing. But this whole area was full was just had abundance of native life, native fauna, native trees like the retamas and the huizaches, and of course the wildlife was all over the place. So when they started setting up the villages and they set up the towns, we were aware as villages of the things around us. So we had dances to the ocelot and to the bear and to the deer. We still have our dances. Our language is still alive, and we use it. We're trying to live it. We're not practicing it because we don't need to practice our language. It's our language. There's a common denominator here. Even if you do have, what they call here mestiaje. The bottom denominator is the land. The land's what owns us, and it owns that native part of who we are, and we have a duty and a responsibility to that land.
Yeah.
That's the initial out of the box message that we've been getting from Mancias, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's others in there, which is like, you need to check your blood. So if you're Native American or if you're one of the original peoples from this continent, like our ancestors to the south, the people that are being laterally oppressed by your cohorts and camp members like Evan Duke and Dwayne Redwater and others that have crossed the border into Mexico.
Yeah.
Never mind that, though. They come with this moral authority as indigenous people of the Eshnoknok or whatever the heck they're calling themselves these days.
Yeah.
The Carrizo Comecrudo tribe. And their fight is this butterfly thing. In this post, Butterfly versus Borders, you can see they're giving the history of the Butterfly Center. And
I see, yeah.
you can read there that Marianne Trevino Wright, which was pictured before in the pictures of the people from the camp.
Yeah, I remember her.
The executive director lady, if you'll read that.
Yeah, she's driving her car by the levee that crosses the private property of the National Butterfly Center. Then she saw something unsettling. Surrounded by dense Texas thorn scrub that goes on either side of the levee, she pulled over, got out of her car, and confronted 5 government contractors outfitted in safety vests, hats, goggles, and chainsaw pants. Mariana, the executive director of this unique butterfly conservatory, which doubles as the largest native part of plant nursery in the United States, remembers the moment clearly. She recalls how 3 of the men were operating chainsaws and another one drove a brush hog, while the final worker was on a boom mount and a brush cutter.
Now, if you haven't noticed, this is literally a diary of everything they're doing out there.
Yeah.
In this long blog post. And Garet Blair was writing all of it.
I see.
According to this, for Intercontinental Cry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it says, right?
Yeah.
And V. Patel is there, and she's working on a joint thing with him, which they have a YouTube channel for, which has like 4 videos on it.
Okay.
Most of which you've already seen in the course of the show today.
Mm-hmm.
But there's this podcast, which I shared a bit part of, which is basically the stripped audio from some of these other videos of interviews with Juan Mancias and things like that.
Yeah.
Where they're talking about, where they did an audio podcast that's over an hour long. And there are more of them than just one, although I couldn't find it, nor did I want to listen to any of the other ones. But they basically have this stripped audio with, these little interviews with the ex-professor Balsadou, Christopher Balsadou, who's also a Carrizo Comecrudo tribe member. And then you've got people like, all of these other folks we've talked about this evening, like Evan Duke, etc., Doug Warren, so many of the other folks that we've talked about. And they're, giving their perspective on what it means to resist the border wall and what they're doing for the ecosystem and saving the planet and all of these other lofty ideas they love to throw around. But then, toward the end, they bring it all together, and Juan Mancias in this clip spits it out very, very clearly. I want you to listen carefully to what this all means in the end and how it has to do with their relatives, the migrants, the people crossing the border, which they have every right to do. Okay? And there should be no wall. And you know what? This is why. He listened to what he says. That Americans that are not native to this land need to do. Okay?
We had to walk through high grass to get to the other graves. We didn't know that there were these many graves. And once we started clearing it, we started recognizing that there were other burials here. This is considered one of the freedmen's cemeteries here because it was part of the Underground Railroad. So we want to make sure that we emphasize these things of what we're doing here. We're really taking care of the things that are here, taking care of our relatives that are here. They're going to have to move us, some way or the other. We're not leaving here. Our direct action is that we're here. And we're here on the cemetery to protect it. This is occupied land. I think they need to understand what culture is. They need to understand the history of this land before they even decide to put up a wall. And just because we crossed, a lot of us crossed that river, doesn't mean that that's Mexico and this is the United States. That's still Somisec. That's still where our people live over there. Our relatives live over there. So we haven't forgotten who our relatives are. We're not disconnected. All the way down to Tierra del Fuego, those are native people, and we have some connection with them in some way. There were trade routes all the way down there, all the way up to the Arctic Circle. There were trade routes. And that's documented with places where people would meet to trade, like the Fallen Timbers and Rescate Canyon up in South Texas, Paladuro Canyon. These are documented. We got to stop being colonized as native people. We are of this one people, We are of this one people of this land. There's an inherent right to migrate. If these people are coming and seeking asylum from being oppressed themselves, they shouldn't be oppressed here by people that really don't have any claim to this land and want to make laws and then, constitute policy and make people criminals because they help people like that. If those people come across that river and they ask for asylum, they need to be given asylum, and that's the law. They still have the right to have asylum. That's every human right. The thing is that we understand the whole idea of inherent rights of migration, and we continue to speak about that because they only find it's okay for them to migrate from across the ocean and come this way, and that's fine with them, The thing that they're doing here is that they're just making it harder for us to accept that there's got to be some healing with this racist society that we live in. And the healing's got to start when they realize that they're the racist, and they are being awful to people of color.
No.
We had to walk.
Don't do that to me.
I didn't set up the times.
Sorry. I don't think I did that because I would not do that to myself.
Yeah.
But, however, did you catch it? Did you catch what he said? He got there in a roundabout way. He's like, there is a cemetery. It was abandoned. Yeah. There are people that have adopted roadways that have been supporting a piece of land longer than this tribe it was caring for the cemetery, these sacred lands. Truth is, it's all for show. It's all for the moment. It's all for the cause.
Yep.
But the reality is, what he gets to is that, migration is a right. And European settlers that migrated there over from Europe to here, who think they have a claim to this land, have no say in this. They don't have a claim to this land.
Yeah.
This land isn't America, and that land over there, that ain't Mexico.
In fact, this is a place you can't build a wall because we're funneling people through here, and we have the legal right to do that, the human right to be able to do that. Get off our land.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Pretty much, yes.
This is our Coyote Trail.
And if we want to help our relatives, we're going to help our relatives.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have to move us from this spot. Because we're going to do this. It's going to get done. And nobody's going to stop us.
That's right.
Okay? And you know what? We need some healing from racists in America. And you know when it starts? When they admit they're racist.
Yeah.
It's like, what? So here's the thing. It's all, kind of in the way that he comes at you. If you're American and you don't happen to be a First Nations person or have Native American blood in you, then basically he's saying you don't even have a say in what happens in America. And you need to shut up about the wall. The only people that should be talking about it is Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they're going to sue the president.
Yeah,
they're suing the president. They got a lawsuit, too.
Oh, yeah.
They're all going to sue.
Uh-huh.
And people are giving them money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, supporting all of this nonsense and everything that is behind it are people who are in it to make sure you see them in the spotlight, just like we see in this post of Mr. Garet Blair, where now, not Standing Rock, but in 2019, he was illegally detained at the border right outside
of
the National Butterfly Center. And it's a video of him being pulled over, getting arrested, I presume, or getting a ticket.
Yeah.
So, what have we learned
Uh-huh.
about the journalists for hire? One thing I can tell you for sure is that they're not objective and that their bias is damaging. It is harmful, especially when we look at what it supports and what it does, how it lies to people. That is disturbing. And I'm going to be bringing you more of what these fronts and organizations that are going out there and misleading people about what they do, what they know, and who they're working for. To come from Puerto Rico on the next A Mexican Crossing Lines with your hosts, Cindy Gomez-Schempp
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM, KPPPLP, Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.